Well, what kind of ceasefire is it if you say you can't have a ceasefire until we have our ceasefire the way we want it, and the UN Relief Works Agency is still not being funded by the United States, the one agency that would be capable of moving the massive amounts of humanitarian aid that are urgently needed in Gaza. Also, Sudan is threatened with famine. South Sudan has 18 million people who are facing famine, 760,000 children already suffering from malnutrition, and there are warnings that 220,000 children could die of starvation in South Sudan in the coming weeks and months. There is starvation in Haiti. And I will tell you, it's been my position that if the United States would return to its revolutionary principles as being an anti-colonial, anti-British Empire power for the good, there is not one of these problems I've just referenced that would not be soluble. So the American people really must stand up. Helga Zepp-LaRouche has called for a full all-out mobilization against nuclear war, writing letters, protests, boycotts, everything that you can do, interventions on your congressman, etc. We must pull the world back from the brink of the abyss. So you may say, given all of that, why would we have a discussion about the solar eclipse? Well, in moments like this, it is actually very urgent to remember where we are, who we are in the universe, the miracle of the human mind that is capable of apprehending certain universal principles which clearly affect bodies in space that are far greater than we can even reach. So I asked my longtime colleague, Roger Ham, to talk to you tonight about the eclipse, the solar eclipse, which is coming up in New York and a big band across the United States on Monday, April 8th. We'll be watching it here. Hopefully we'll all be still alive. And hopefully people can consider that perhaps there are principles that are larger and more powerful than the foolish squabbles that we've fallen into. So with that, Roger, why don't you take it away?
All right, thank you, Diane. As Diane mentioned, the space program and astronomy in general have been a rare area where people from all different countries, religions, cultures could join together to explore the universe which created us. It's well known that every atom in your body came from an exploding star somewhere in the universe. And every person that has been on the space station or the Apollo programs has talked about how being able to view the Earth, to be able to view the heavens, has given them a rare perspective on that which does unite us as a common humanity. And if you think about the history of life on Earth, before there was language, before there was written history, before there were human beings, there was the sky. There were the stars, the groupings of stars we call constellations, that have really been an integral part of our existence from the very beginnings of anything we might call civilization. And so we're going to talk about the eclipse, the solar eclipse that's occurring Monday afternoon, April 8th, which will be visible in about 15 U.S. states, as well as Mexico and parts of Canada. But I really want to take the opportunity to get people to think about the importance of astronomy in how it has shaped our understanding of the physical universe on Earth as well as the heavens. And you can imagine that early on, when we had little real comprehension of what was occurring in the heavens, there was tremendous possibility for speculation, for superstition, fear, uh, you know, what have you. And I'll just use a couple of examples. Jose, if you can show the first slide. This is a depiction of a meteor shower in 1833. Abraham Lincoln observed this when he was 24 years old. Frederick Douglass recounts it, where people saw literally hundreds or thousands of fireballs or streaks in the sky, which today we refer to as the Leonid meteor shower, which is actually an annual meteor shower every November when the Earth passes through the tail of a comet. And Lincoln describes how he was renting a room from I believe it was a Presbyterian minister, and he got a knock on his door in the middle of the night, and the preacher came in and said, "The end of the world." And he opened the drapes and saw this meteor shower. And later, during the Civil War, when he was asked whether the Union would survive, he described having witnessed this meteor shower, and he said, "Well, the world didn't end then, and the Union won't end today." So, and if you look at the next slide, this is from Hindu mythology, and this depicts how, I don't know who Rahu represents, but that he was described as swallowing the sun, causing eclipses. And as we'll see, the sun will in fact disappear on April 8th, being completely covered by the moon. And there have been similar things. The meteor shower that I showed you a picture of before this was the basis for writing the spiritual, "My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning," when the stars begin to fall. So these sort of events have become part of our culture in many ways. When slaves were trying to flee the South, they were often told to follow the drinking gourd, which was an African description of what we call the Big Dipper, which rotates around the North Star. And if you would follow the drinking gourd, keep that ahead of you, you would basically be heading north. So there are constantly these kind of references to astronomy, which obviously initially began simply with our perception of what we saw in the heavens. And it's interesting that one of the first theories of the heavens developed by an Egyptian, Claudius Ptolemy, called the Ptolemaic system, was simply based on what we saw and felt, that the Earth is stationary, we don't feel it moving. We see the sun, the moon, all the stars rise, go across the sky, and set every single day. And it's something to reflect on, that while we might consider this idea of a stationary Earth with the whole universe revolving around it as being a little ridiculous today, this was considered the only conceivable explanation of how the heavens operated for about 1400 years. He was born in about 100 AD, and it was only when you had Copernicus who began to broach the subject of perhaps the Earth wasn't the center of the universe, and that perhaps it rotated like the other planets. But in both of those systems, there was really no sense of what caused any of this motion. And they were equally good at giving general predictions of where the planets would be at any point in the future, when there would be certain alignments of the planets. And a simple example of that is when you have a full moon, the moon will be rising at basically the same time that the sun is setting. So that the sun could be over here, the earth would be in the center, and the moon would be on the opposite side, so that it would be fully illuminated by the sun. And you can have other kinds of alignments of the planets when they're both on the same side, when they're on opposite sides, and all of these have certain significance, and this would be one of the things that would be noted by astronomers who were studying the motion of the planets. And one of the most interesting of those is what we call an eclipse. And Jose, if you can go to the next slide. Well, what I'm hoping Jose will put up on the screen, I think, is a couple photographs of two real pioneers in the history of astronomy, Johannes Kepler and Tycho Brahe. And back in 2016, I had the privilege of going to Prague in the Czech Republic, thanks to my generous wife. And among other things, I visited this statue and visited the Kepler Museum there. And at the time that I was at the statue, I was wearing a t-shirt with a picture of Kepler on it, which I have on tonight. I won't ask you to read it, but I'm going to read the quote from Kepler that I have on this t-shirt. "The diversity of the phenomena of nature is so great, and the treasures hidden in the heavens so rich, precisely in order that the human mind shall never be lacking in fresh nourishment."